Hello and welcome to the Ren Den. I'm Ren, and today I want to tell you about a couple of adventures I went on recently. Firstly, context. I think it was in May-ish of this year. Charlie Neebe over at the Stitchery did a video about going to local art workshops and whether it was worth it, and kind of talking about the experience. We, as you might know, moved into this area last year, and because I am naturally a sort of inside introverted person, I have really struggled to go outside and meet people and kind of get used to moving independently in this area rather than kind of relying on lifts or, you know, someone else is already going that way or whatever. So I really wanted to do something about that, but you know, new stuff is scary. And Charlie's video gave me the courage to try a similar thing myself. So I signed up for a couple of craft workshops, just like day workshops, not like a whole course or anything. One for upholstery and another for dressmaking, both of which are things that I would like to know more about. I mean, I've talked about wanting to make my own clothes here before. I've never successfully made anything from scratch myself, and definitely wanted to change that. And I've also talked about wanting to reupholster this chair, or get it reupholstered at least. And I thought if I did a little upholstery workshop, then I would at least understand the process and know whether it was within my kind of remit to be able to do that. So both useful skills, which makes it harder to back out of them once you've signed up, which was sort of deliberate. I knew that if there was a decent excuse to get out of them, I might not follow through, and I really didn't want to be in that position. I think it's important to stretch the muscle of like scary or new experiences. And yeah, I mean, spoilers, I managed it. I have been to both workshops now. So yeah, in this video I just wanted to share a little bit about the experience, how they went, and share with you the final results. So the first one I went to was the upholstery workshop, and we made a little footstool. It's so cute. It's actually the perfect height. I don't know if I'm going to leave it here because it's a bit weird in the frame, but it's actually the perfect height to sit on the armchair and just like get cozy. So it's really lovely. This started out as the legs obviously were pre-made. There's a plywood board in here kind of as the base frame for it. And then it was just a pile of soft furnishing bits and pieces and stuff, and this fabric which I bought for the project, which was, I got it treated so that it was flame retardant, because I want to do exactly the same fabric on the chair, and it wouldn't really matter whether or not this was flame retardant, but it will matter if that is. So I just wanted to make sure that they wouldn't be like different textures or anything, because I think that would bug me. I think if I put it over here, yeah, it's still in the frame. Okay, cool. So you can have a little look at it while I talk, and I'll put some footage. I only took photos on both of the days because I don't yet know how to have conversations with people in public about the fact that I make videos about stuff that I do. So I've just taken photos, but I will also do some close-up stuff of the finished things so that you can see the details a bit more. So yeah, the upholstery workshop was such a lovely day. It was 5 hours with a short lunch break to make this. We waxed the feet. You could paint or wax them, and there were different heights. She had like 3 different heights of feet, I think. So there were loads of sort of customization options even from just that level. And then obviously everyone had different fabric that they'd bought, so we were all making really different things. It was really cool seeing everyone else's stuff come together. It was a really nice sized group. There was only 4 of us. So we just kind of, you know, chatted and got on with it, and you know, it was really lovely, really lovely group, really lovely day. I will put links to both of the courses in the description, by the way, because I really enjoyed both of them, and I think if you're local, then they're both really worth giving it a go. This was with Joe at the Boho Shed, who was a fantastic teacher. I mean, we basically walked into this sort of pile of soft, random looking materials, and she at every stage explained not just how we were going to use them, but why they were important as a kind of part of the process and a part of the construction. So that was really useful, because I've now come away with a understanding of why you would need to do those things, rather than just being like, well, it's just how you do it. So I think that's a really good system. She also gave us handouts with like the instructions and the materials written out quite thoroughly, which I thought was fantastic. Because I mean, I'm a, you know, consummate note taker, but I didn't take notes. I didn't have to, really, because it was all there, so I could just sit and enjoy the process, knowing that if I later went, and how did that work, I already had all that stuff written down, which I thought was a really nice detail, and kind of speaks to how much she's thought through making it a really useful learning experience for people, which is awesome. As for upholstery itself, I really enjoyed it. It's physically quite hard, because you're sort of pulling and shaping the fabric around these, you know, a flat thing around a round thing, and needing to hold things quite tightly in place as you sort of staple them down. And the staple gun itself, the sort of mechanism of that, can be quite hard work if you've got any kind of arthritis or anything. She suggested that you use the power tool version. Essentially, we were using the handheld, just like a regular staple gun, because, you know, it was just the four of us in a room. But in her studio, she's got like the whole, you know, like gas compression setup. But yeah, if you've got any kind of problem with like grip strength or anything like that, then it might be worth looking into workarounds for that sort of thing. But the process of it was really low risk, if that makes sense. Like at every stage, every layer is absolutely like stapled into, you don't have to cut off the excess of any layer of the construction. So it's not just the fabric, obviously. There's foam, and then there's like upholstery filler, and then there's a couple of other layers that go over this before you put the fabric on. And so you're kind of folding them round to underneath, getting the corner folds right, stapling it in place, and kind of trying to keep it all even and taut. But you don't actually cut off the excess of any layer until you have stapled down the whole layer, because it gives you need it to like grip and to pull to make sure it's tight enough when you're stapling it. So if you you could put the whole of a layer on, whether it's the fabric or any of the layers underneath, and go, oh, that's misaligned, or you know, these darts are wonky or whatever, and you could just take all the staples out and do the whole layer again, and that's just not going to be a problem. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, just being like, actually, this is eminently reversible if you do a bit and you don't like it. It's and more quickly reversible than unpicking stitches, as I found out. Spoiler alert for the later bit. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit expensive to get into, just because, well, certainly it would be for me, because I don't have really any of the materials from any other craft that I do. All of the stuff would be new to me, basically, so I'd have to get everything in. But it's also a really valued skill, and if you get into it, you can charge quite reasonable prices for the labour and for the sort of artistry of it as well. So from that sense, it's definitely something worth exploring. So when it comes to the chair, I think I could probably make a good go at reupholstering it, knowing what I know now. I also now know the level of work involved, and this is obviously going to be much more complicated than this, because this is one block of foam. This is square. This is a wingback. It's got a bunch of different things going on. It's also probably, I mean, I don't know when it was last reupholstered. It has been reupholstered in its life, but that I would easily estimate that that's been decades. So I don't know what's going on underneath there. I don't know what materials we used. I don't know what state the whole thing is going to be in. And I don't want to strip it, realize I'm in out of my depth, and then have to call someone in. Because by that point, what if I've done the beginning wrong and actually made it harder to do? So I think I probably am going to get it recovered professionally, but a lot of services will work with the fabric that you provide. So I'm probably going to still buy the fabric to match this, so that it's a nice matching set. I mean, it looks really nice against the wall as well, which is cool. So I'll probably, over the next sort of, I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a medium to long term situation. Maybe this sort of over the next kind of 6 to 9 months, I will start saving up for reupholstering that, because I would really like it to be a matching set. Like, now I've got the wall done and the bookcases are looking cute and this is cute. The chair is such an outlier and I kind of hate it. And I love this chair. So yeah, I probably will get that done professionally, but I still think this was definitely a useful endeavor, and it's a really nice little piece of furniture to have in this room as well. Like, it's really comfy to have at the armchair. It just makes the armchair really cozy. So yeah, that's the upholstery. And then the other class I went on was dressmaking in a day with the Ministry of Craft in Eccles, in sort of West Manchester, basically. That was a bit of a longer day. It was 9 to 5 with I say lunch break. What actually happened, there was a sort of space for a lunch break, but because I was doing something a bit complicated, what actually happened was, while she explained the next bit, I scarfed down a sandwich and moved on. So it was pretty full on, but it was so useful. Like, it was really thorough. Really was kind of dressmaking in a day. We started by going through just literally like looking at a packet, like a pattern envelope, and like all of the bits of information on there and what it means and what to look for when you're looking for a pattern that would be suitable for you or for, you know, whatever you're making, what all the different sort of numbers and symbols mean. And then we looked at pattern pieces themselves, what all those symbols mean, the difference between like off the rack sizing, the sizes on the back of patterns, and the finished garment measurements, which can be a whole other thing, because the pattern maker might disagree with you on how much ease there should be in a pattern. So like things to look out for there. Really thorough, really useful. And then so you could pick from a few different garments to make. I picked like sort of top, basically a kind of 3/4 sleeve top. And I could have done raglan sleeves or inset sleeves, and I picked inset sleeves because I knew that was the more complicated one and therefore the thing I wanted to learn. So once we'd gone through what a pattern is and how it works, we put the delicate tissue paper pattern pieces away, and we got out, she'd cut out the patterns that we were using. I mean, this must have taken her ages. In every size that the pattern comes in, they were all cut out of this like sugar paper card, like coloured card, you know, massive pieces, so that we could just draw around those, and they can obviously be reused for other classes, which I think was a really sensible way to do a pattern that, you know, is going to be used over and over and over by a bunch of different people. So there was a big group of us. It was there was probably 8 or 9 of us in the room, I would say. So it was a bigger class than the upholstery, and kind of a little busier because of that. But we were all making different things, so it was kind of weirdly like we were all occupied in the same space using, you know, loud machines. So the sewing machine, and then she had overlockers as well, which is fun to play with. But we were all doing completely separate things. Well, I was lucky because it turned out just by happenstance that I was doing the same pattern with a very similar fabric to someone else. So we kind of sat across from each other and like helped each other out with being like, and was this the next thing? Or like, how did you find that? If you, you know, if one of us was ahead or behind or whatever. So that really made the experience, I think, just having that interaction and not just doing it completely kind of in a bubble. But Alison was amazing at explaining all the different processes and machines. I got to use a very fancy sewing machine that cuts the thread for you and everything. Like, I mean, it was a dream. I'm very fond of my old girl, but she is, elderly. And she needs a service, first of all. But yeah, the new machines were very attractive. I will say that. And she also had overlockers, so that was really cool to play with because, where would I have the opportunity to have a go with one of those? I liked it. I thought it was fine. We would have really struggled to do that work without the overlockers in the day that we had. I think they're really good for getting stuff done faster, like finishing seams off faster. I'm not in love with the way an overlocked seam looks, so unless I was working with a lot of stretch fabrics, because that's the thing where it really comes into its own. Because so essentially an overlocker cuts the edge of the fabric as it's sewing along the edge of the fabric, so it stops it from fraying and stretching. So if you're working with a very fray fabric or a very stretchy fabric like knit fabrics, it really helps to kind of make it easier to work with. But the part of the reason I want to make my own clothes is I want to use like natural fabrics and natural fibers, so they're not really going to be that stretchy. So I think I'll get by without one. But it was fun to play with, definitely. And Alison was such a great teacher. I mean, she was not remotely daunted by my measurements. I was like one size in the bust because obviously I don't have one. And I was like 4 sizes away from that in the hips. So we sort of worked, like, she didn't do it for me, but I was never kind of left to flounder, which was really useful. So now I have a sense of how to fit a pattern, because no pattern out of the bag is ever going to fit, like one size of that pattern is ever going to fit me in its entirety. Like, I've had a double mastectomy, so I don't have a bust in the traditional sense. Like, we took darts out of the top that I made because I don't need anything there. And yeah, so I'm never going to be the same, like one size all over it, no matter how, adaptive the pattern is. But now I know how to approach that and how to address that when drawing out the pattern pieces. So that was insanely useful, because I know and have known that that's going to be the thing that I would struggle with. So that was incredibly useful. Like, even by the time we got to lunchtime, I was like, this is already worth its weight in gold. Just explaining what a pattern is and how to fit it to a real human body was so useful. And then being able to put that into practice by making the top as well was great. And yeah, I mean, honestly, inset sleeves, not as bad as I was led to believe that they are. Everyone seems very scared of inset sleeves, and it takes effort, sure, and Alison showed us a couple of tricks to make it slightly easier, which whenever I make something else with inset sleeves, I will obviously share that with you, because it's a really useful part of the process. I mean, it might be a thing that everybody knows, but it's a thing that I just found out, so I'm excited about it. But yeah, I mean, inset sleeves take kind of paying attention and time, I think, but it wasn't unbearably fiddly, and it made I mean, because of the way that I had reshaped the pattern, we actually technically did it the harder way, which was to sew the shoulder seam and the side seam and then do the whole sleeve in the already closed armscye, which is the armhole in the side of a piece of top. And I didn't I mean, it wasn't that complicated to do. So I don't know, maybe I'm bigging myself up. Maybe it was easy to do on this lovely, very modern machine. Maybe I'll get to doing it at home by myself and, have a hissy fit or whatever. But I thought it was fine, honestly. And yeah, in terms of using these skills, again, I'm already running with ideas. I would already love to get the fabric stash out and make a list of the things that I would like to make and try and make for myself. So really excited about that. The top turned out amazingly. I should have it, actually. So this is the top that I made. It's made of linen, which I really wanted to do because I want basically to have like a completely linen option for summer. I was also slightly thinking about, we recently watched The Lord of the Rings again, and I was slightly thinking about Aragorn's burgundy top, which I would love to try and find some like burgundy linen and try and make a version of that. But yeah, the sleeves turned out really well. The neckline is really neat. I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of way of closing off the neckline. I think I might sew down the kind of the facing a bit more than it has been sewn down, because just the flaps are not, I don't love that necessarily, but I know how to do that now, and I have opinions about necklines now, which is new in itself, so that's cool. We also talked about, and I probably would have done it in the time, but I ran out of time a little bit for reasons that were not Alison's fault, which I'll get into in a second. But the sleeves, we talked about folding them and like sewing them folded to kind of have them sit just above the elbow, because I think that will be a comfier length for me, and I think that looks really cool. Yeah, the two big mistakes I made while I was doing it was, so we really carefully extended the pattern pieces while we were drawing around them and made it sort of so that it would fit me, and then I switched my brain off for one of the pieces and cut out the smaller line which is the original pattern piece rather than the extended line. So I had to recut that out. Fortunately, I have loads of fabric, so that was fine. I'd set myself up for success in that regard. But yeah, that was that was a little bit frustrating. And then so I had to cut that out again. And then the other thing that I did was my first go at sewing on the neckline facing. I got muddled and sewed it the wrong way around. So instead of sewing, you would do this and you would sew with the right sides together here. I actually sewed it with right side to wrong side. So it just looked like a little clown collar once it was done. So I had to unpick the whole thing, sew it back on properly, which did take a little bit of time, but it's fine, and I have learned things from that, and that absolutely was my own fault for just not switching my brain on about it. So yeah, all in all, very much a success, very useful, can recommend, really useful foundational course. Really glad I did that. I feel like I should have a hook on the wall here so I can hang this in a sort of background display, but I haven't put holes in this wall yet because I'm still scared about it. So I'm just going to pop it here so you can enjoy the nice fabrics. This is majority cotton. It's not entirely natural. It's really hard to find pure cotton upholstery fabric that you can also fire retard for not stupid money. But this is majority cotton and this is 100% linen, so I love my natural fabrics. I love it. So in terms of going outside and doing stuff and meeting people, which was the sort of broader goal of these workshops, to make me go outside and talk to people, I did find it really valuable. I was definitely less trepidatious of the second class than the first one, even though the first one was less fiddly to get to and shorter, and ended up being a smaller group because I'd already done the first one. So I kind of had a sort of script built in for how to greet when go in room, and how to make conversation with strangers that you're probably going to be you can't get into in-depth conversations because you're probably about to be interrupted with the instructions for the thing that you're there to do. So, and just managing the I don't know who I'm going to spend the day with and whether they're going to like me and whether I'm going to be any good at this. And all of that was way less daunting the second time than the first time. So I think it's definitely worth stretching those kind of new experience muscles, the go outside muscles. Dealing with transport not being quite how I planned, all the rest of it got a lot easier, even on just the second time of doing it, within the span of about 2 weeks. So that's definitely something useful to bear in mind, that I am way less nervous about those things when I just do them more often. which, you know, makes sense. But I'm saying it on this video so that like there's a record of me having that opinion. Because it gets to the point where it's been too long since I've been outside and talked to people, and I get scared. So it's useful to have a sort of built-in reminder for myself that actually it's okay and it's good and it's better if you go outside. I also found it way easier to learn stuff in person than following like YouTube tutorials, which are great for certain things, but I do get overwhelmed because it's not happening at a pace that I can control. So you have to do a lot of stop, start, and rewinds. You can't ask questions. You can't be like, oh, could you just do this bit again? You can't be like, oh, could you just look at this and see if I've done it right before I move on? You know, obviously it's a lot more self-led because of the nature of how it works. But it was really cool to be in the room with the person doing the teaching and just learn the thing, you know, and just get stuff figured out. And because it was, you know, you wouldn't like click on an 8-hour YouTube video that said it was going to teach you dressmaking because it's simply too long. But doing it in the format of a day course is completely fine and really useful, and just kind of speed runs a lot of stuff, or did for me anyway. It's definitely going to be much easier to do this sort of thing in the summer, like longer days. You know, I would have come back in the dark for both courses, I think, if it was like the depths of winter. And that always just makes the day feel like it's been a lot longer. Whereas like, you know, the dressmaking was a long day, but when I left the house, it was light. And when I came back, it was light. And that made a huge amount of difference to sort of my brain's interpretation of how much time it had actually taken up. So, you know, I mean, I'm not closing myself off to not doing this sort of thing in the winter, but I could definitely see it becoming a bit of a sort of summer tradition to sort of stretch those muscles and go out and try new things, just because, you know, it just makes it easier to do when you can see stuff. You know, now that I know I can do this sort of thing, I can keep an eye out for similar things and be more comfortable kind of jumping on board with something, knowing that it's completely within my capacity to get myself to places and not make a fool of myself in front of new people, and get valuable experience out of it, and not get like socially fatigued 3 hours in and want to go home. Definitely a useful process. And like I say, I'm really grateful to Charlie at the Stitchery for prompting me to kind of take the plunge and do something that I'd been talking about doing, but not actually like making any steps towards planning or booking anything. It was just the kind of kick that I needed. So this wouldn't have happened without her video. So thank you if you ever see this. So yeah, those are my 2 adventures. Fun new experiences, new skills. I hope this was interesting for you. Maybe it will inspire you to also go outside and meet people and do stuff. Can recommend, and this is me, the person who lives in this room, saying that. So, you know, I think it's worth it. Thank you so much for watching. As always, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And otherwise, take care, and I'll see you on the next project.